Often job seekers, not just immigrants, individuals that have been here for a while, focus on one type of job that they're looking for. Statistically, they have a challenge in the short term. So you got to think strategically about kind of thinking about what your desired job is, what it's all about, what are the knowledge, skills, and abilities, understand it inside and out, and then also look for other opportunities that can make you more competitive by acquiring those skill sets and so forth for different type of jobs. So my topic is, the strategic networker. How do you get more strategic with it? The reality is that we've done some research and we found on popular social media networking sites that the majority of people, 70%, are not comfortable reaching out to people they don't know. So 70% of us here are not comfortable doing that. I'm being one of them. I can speak in front of groups, but I am not comfortable networking. That one-to-one thing, it kind of freaks me out. I'm the guy that goes to a party, finds somebody that I know, and sticks with them all night. And obviously that's problematic when it comes to networking. Networking is about accessing a number of different people so that if you're interested in a job-related information may come your way by accident. Just by talking to different people, you can come across some information that can help you, all by accident. But if we don't do it, then it becomes much more challenging. And you all heard the statement, the majority of jobs are hidden, somewhere to 80%. And really that means that employers aren't advertising their jobs like they used to, right? Or if they are advertising their jobs, they're realizing they're getting a lot of applications. So if you know somebody within the organization, obviously it may help your chances of moving your resume to the top of the pile. So the question becomes, how do we get more comfortable, at networking? And your networking, it's really about sharing your goals, right? Listening to others' goals and sharing your goals. And it's about being clear on what you want to accomplish, right? And being able to communicate that. Now, if English is your second language, that's going to be more challenging than somebody who speaks English, their first language, right? So it's about being clear on your goals. So I challenge you to think about what you're trying to accomplish, right? So if you haven't set any goals, what is your purpose? Now, the problem with goal setting is, if I asked each and every one of you what your goals were, and you're looking for a job, you would say to me, your goal is to find a job, right? Have you ever heard the saying, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. A job is like an elephant, right? Imagine sitting at the table and trying to eat an elephant. Where would you start? Right? Do you start at the back? Well, it would just be huge. And so when it comes to goal setting, it's about breaking it down into bite-sized pieces. So the job is your objective or your goal. How could you break it down into smaller pieces? Well, perhaps you can work on your resume. So your goal is to meet with an employer, not to ask for a job, but to find out what sort of things you should put on your resume, what sort of things they look for in a resume. Perhaps an objective is to find out the hiring trends in the area that you're interested in, and so forth. Perhaps you want to find out who the decision maker is at a particular organization. Perhaps you want to find out about the best organizations that have promotions. If you really think about job as kind of the overarching objective and break it down into smaller sized pieces, you start to have a set of goals that will help you in your networking. So whether you go online or face-to-face, you're able to ask a number of different people to help you out, versus just asking for a job and only a select few people can help you out. There are different types of requests we make. Some are high risk and some are low risk. Asking for a job to a perfect stranger is a high risk kind of request, right? You don't know them, they don't know you, they'll probably be polite, they got to discover a little more, etc., etc. A low risk request is asking hiring trends. Like, what are the hiring trends in the banking industry? And it appears to be pretty good, especially in Hamilton. So what are the low risk trends? Andrew's not going to hesitate to answer that question. He either says, yeah, it's great, it's okay, or it's not good at all, right? He doesn't have anything invested in that. So the type of requests you make in networking has to equate to the level of relationship or the type of relationship you have. And often networkers, whether newcomers or folks that have been in Canada their whole lives, make inappropriate requests to individuals they don't have the right relationship with. And that doesn't work. They don't get what they want. So when they don't get what they want or it doesn't work out, you know, obviously they become demotivated and it kind of takes them off networking. So social capital is like a savings account. If you don't give back, you'll have a zero balance. I tell my wife that all the time with our savings account. Honey, if you keep taking money out, we don't put any in, it's going to end up at zero. And networking is the same type of thing. It's not just about taking, it's about giving to the network as well. And you know, that's a big component of it. And so trust is a big part of it. When you get to work, you know, a colleague may help you once and without asking for anything, but subconsciously even, they'll expect something in the future. You know, we all do, it's human nature. And if we don't repay that, you know, you think they're gonna help you again. No, it's about reciprocity, it's about giving back and giving back. So why network? Ultimately, what's the reason to do that? And the reason is, obviously, to get a job. Accessing the hidden job market, right? Postings, of course, are on the BMO, right? And you can apply all you want, and some of you have. But if you really want to increase the likelihood, knowing a contact doesn't hurt at all, right? Not that you can circumvent the application process, but it definitely helps. So the more you're connected with people, the more you reach out, the better chance of something happening. Networking is not only prior, you know, useful for getting a job, but also while you're working, right? In certain positions like business development and sales, networking isn't obvious. But more and more organizations today are looking for individuals that can collaborate and develop relationships, right? So it's a skill set that is not only necessary for job searching, but for keeping and maintaining a job and potentially even being promoted. So how do we become more comfortable is the million-dollar question, right? So we know 70% of the population is not comfortable networking, right? So how do we become more comfortable? And obviously, for the time that we have, I'm just going to give you some high-level kind of ideas on how you could potentially do that. So the good news is that networking is a teachable and learnable skill. So networking is essentially a behavior, right? And the more you do it, the more comfortable you get at it, and the better you get at it. And as I mentioned earlier, I'm not a comfortable network at all, and I'll do I shouldn't say stupid things, but crazy things like going into Tim Hortons. When I used to go into Tim Hortons and stand in line, I would stand in line, wait to get my coffee, and not do anything. Now what I do is totally different, like in the last 5-10 years. Do you want to know what my line is for talking to people in Tim Hortons? It's kind of hot out there today, isn't it? It's kind of cold out there today, right? And you will be amazed, and that's just not me, I'm not the small talker, but when you do that, people just kind of open up and they start talking, they start chatting. But I made a conscious decision to change my behavior. And when it comes to networking, it's doing those little things. And my line is fairly straightforward, you know, it's pretty hot out there, or it's pretty cold, or how's the weather, right? And you can almost equate that to dating. I wish I knew that when I was dating back there. But anyways, that's another story. The good news also with networking is that everyone is doing it, right? You know it, everyone's doing it. It's just part of the vernacular, it's part of the way we do business, it's part of the way we interact, socialize. We have Facebook, we have LinkedIn. It's a global phenomenon. I have connections all around the world, thanks in part to technology. So we know everyone's doing it, and it's a necessary skill. And I think at the end of the day, people are willing to help. I really do. And we have to keep that in mind when networking. I think ultimately, people are willing to go out and help somebody out when they need to. And we've got to keep that in mind as well. And then finally, so what can you do? What can you do next? What are some kind of learning points that you can take away? Become clear about your goals, right? You got your little passport book, write down that overall objective. If it is a job, how can you break it down into smaller pieces, right? So when you go online, when you go face-to-face, you got an introductory way of introducing yourself and starting to develop a relationship. And go out to employers not just to ask about jobs, right? That's your first instinct. It seems natural to go out to an employer and say, hey, are you hiring? Instead of doing that, go out and say, hey, I was wondering if I can get some information about your particular business or your particular industry and so forth. So you can open up a dialogue, you can open up the opportunity to start to develop a relationship, right? Identify what we have to offer the network, like I said as well. What do you bring to the table? Even if you're from another country and you just moved here, you have something to bring to the table. You just need to know what it is, right? We live in a globalized, global economy, globalized world. What sort of contacts, what sort of experience, what sort of information, what sort of knowledge, right? The best way to introduce yourself to somebody is saying, hey, I read your bio online and I found this article and I thought you might enjoy reading it, right? And that's a kind of an easy way to kind of introduce yourself and to at least start the dialogue. It may not always work. That's not the point. It's about changing your behaviors and opening up opportunities that lead you to the potential of developing relationships. Develop a connection strategy for each contact. So you have a BMO contact. What's your connection strategy? Right? What are you going to say in your email when you email Andrew? Right?
I met you at...
Yeah? Yeah? I loved your presentation yesterday. It was fantastic. And I was wondering, I never thought of getting into the banking industry, but I was wondering if I could talk to you or somebody about, you know, what I could possibly do, right? But this is the kind of ground that you could kind of start from and have a connection strategy. And I think often networkers make mistakes by just jumping out and trying to connect with somebody without thinking about it. Remember my dad, 50 bucks? Dad, give me 50 bucks or I tell mom what you did. He's a first degree contact, I know him, right? I can just act naturally. But I have to step back if I need to get the $50 from my dad's friend. Just like you need to step back to speak to Andrew and think about what's the best approach because you don't know him directly. He doesn't know you at all, right? He's doing a good deed coming in here. He probably wants something because he needs good people. So he's here, but you don't know them all. So think about before emailing him what you're actually going to say. Speak to your counselor, speak to your coach, whoever it may be, and review the email before you send it out. Because once you send click, you send click. And I think you had mentioned first impressions are very important. And that's really what it means when we're talking about developing a strong connection strategy. You only get one kick at the can. Unless it's your mother, your father, your brother, your sister. It's fairly straightforward. Communicate your goals clearly. Right? Be very clear on what you want to accomplish. And again, align the type of goals you're trying to accomplish with the relationships that you have, right? And take it slowly. And then finally and lastly, which I think is the most critical thing and we need to remember, and it kind of gives us an excuse to go out there and network and ask for help, is create mutually beneficial relationships. Not only find out from your network or networking who can help you, but how you can help the other people you're connecting to. And I think we almost have to, I know I have to give myself an excuse to ask somebody for help because I like to do things on my own. But I know with the benefit of others' knowledge and information, it makes things a lot easier. So as long as I'm willing to give back, it gives me a sense of calm when I go and do that. And then trying to kind of round, and I think that is it. Thank you. 7 minutes.